You meet versions of yourself from different timelines. You receive teachings from masters who died centuries ago. You download information from futures you're still creating. But here's where it gets truly extraordinary. You can learn to do this while awake. The ancient Greeks had a practice called anamnesis, the recovery of knowledge that the soul always possessed but had forgotten. Socrates demonstrated this by helping an uneducated slave boy discover complex geometric principles he had never been taught. The knowledge was already there, waiting to be remembered. Indian yogis developed even more sophisticated techniques. Through specific combinations of breath, sound, and intention, they learned to access what they called sanskaras, not just personal memories but cosmic memories. Memories of how the universe was created. Memories of what they were before they became human. Memories of futures they were destined to fulfill. The Sufi mystics spoke of dhikr, remembrance of the divine. But this wasn't just religious devotion. It was a precise technology for awakening dormant chambers in the palace of consciousness. Through repetitive sacred phrases, they would literally vibrate their awareness into expanded states, where forgotten knowledge would spontaneously arise. Even the medieval alchemists understood this principle. Their famous memory palaces weren't just organizational tools. They were maps of consciousness itself. By learning to navigate imaginary architectural spaces, they were actually learning to navigate the dimensional structure of their own awareness. But here's the part that will change everything you think you know about your own mind. These aren't just ancient practices. Modern neuroscience is beginning to discover that consciousness operates exactly like these mystery schools described. Your brain isn't creating your memories, it's receiving them. Like a radio tuning into different stations, your consciousness can be trained to access different frequency bands of memory and information. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's research into morphic resonance suggests that memories and knowledge patterns exist in fields that transcend individual brains. Dr. Ian Stevenson's decades of research into children who remember past lives indicates that memory can somehow transfer between bodies. Even mainstream neuroscientists are starting to acknowledge that consciousness might not be produced by the brain, but rather filtered through it. What if the reason you can't remember your early childhood isn't because those memories are gone, but because you've been conditioned to access only a narrow band of your total memory spectrum? What if the reason you forget your dreams isn't because they're meaningless, but because they contain information your conscious mind isn't ready to handle? The ancient seers knew that forgetting is as much a choice as remembering. You forget things that don't match your current identity. You forget possibilities that seem too impossible. You forget power that feels too dangerous. You forget love that seems too vast. You forget yourself when the truth of what you are becomes too overwhelming for your limited self-concept to contain. But what if you could remember it all? What if you could access the total memory palace of your consciousness and reclaim every piece of wisdom, every moment of power, every fragment of love that you've ever experienced or ever will experience? Here's the first key. Your breath is the doorway. The ancient pranayama techniques weren't just about relaxation. They were about changing your brainwave states to access different memory banks. When you breathe in a specific rhythm, 4 counts in, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, you create a coherent state where your consciousness naturally begins to